All right, well, welcome to episode number 37 of the Oklahoma Weather Show. We've been doing this now all year long. We are now basically getting into the beginning of October here, and we are happy to have meteorologists from the Telemundo station here in Oklahoma City, Mike Saenz, right? I want to say it's Telemundo. You guys are certainly new to the area. Great to have Spanish-speaking meteorologists here in this market is desperately needed. Meteorologist Danielle Dozier in charge of bringing you on the show today. So Danielle, take it away.
Well, Mike, happy to have you here first off, and you gave
Thank
me a
you.
little bit of background about yourself, and you were super excited to be on the show. Of course, as Damon said, we're happy to have you. And it'll be easier if you just tell the people that are listening, I know your audience is listening, our audience is listening, just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from.
Sure, of course. I'm from originally San Antonio, Texas. It was there that I became fascinated with the weather. There was a storm that I was actually stuck in when I was probably about 12, and that's where the whole spark of just the weather, the fascination of how storms develop, and that's kind of where my passion came from. I then started looking for schools and actually found a school in my hometown that I attended. I attended University of the Incarnate Word, graduated with my degree in meteorology there, and while going to school, I actually interned as a sophomore at WOAI-TV in San Antonio, and a lot of people told me in the very beginning, you're interning way too young. You need to wait till about your junior or sophomore year. Thank God I did it when I did, because then after that I was actually hired on with the station for 2 years, and I worked with the weather department through my junior year and senior year, and then I landed a job here in Oklahoma as a Spanish meteorologist. So.
That's awesome. So you were a producer in San Antonio, is that right, you said?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Weather producer. Very cool. And so, you know, I talk to you often on Facebook, and thought I'd have you on the show. One of the reasons was I got to thinking about the community that we have in the Hispanic community that we have, and the importance of having someone like you that can translate that weather message. And so I think I didn't get when you actually came on board in Oklahoma, but I would imagine it had something maybe to do with what happened last May. Is that right?
Yeah, and actually I didn't know that until I started doing investigation myself. I tend to analyze things, as a lot of meteorologists do.
Yeah.
I started looking into this, and I was like, okay, I'm more than likely going to accept the job here, but why is there all of a sudden a need? Because they've never had a meteorologist before. Then to come out that, there were these articles saying, about the tornadoes that happened, and that's why they're searching for one, and I thought, okay. I said, now I found out my purpose. This is why I'm going to Oklahoma.
Wow. Yeah, that's inspiring too, because I was interested in knowing that, if you were just searching for a job and you happened to see that they were looking for one, or if they came to you because of what happened in May. So that was very interesting. So talk a bit about your journey here. You've been here, you got hired. When did you get hired here in Oklahoma?
January the 6th.
January. Okay. So you've been here for, not quite a year. But what's your experience been like so far?
Well, things in Oklahoma are definitely far apart. I didn't realize how things spread out were. Being in San Antonio, I live downtown, so everything was 5 minutes away, 2 minutes away, 10 minutes away. So things are a little bit more spread out. Overall, the weather here changes dramatically compared to San Antonio. Winds is obviously one of the big factors here. Especially when I first came here, I put together my forecast, and being that I was from San Antonio, I wasn't all that confident in my winter forecast, and ended up nailing it because it ended up sleeting. And this was my first time forecasting sleet and icy conditions, and sure enough, what would normally take me a 10-minute drive in Oklahoma City ended up being an hour because the road conditions were just so horrible.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, and so being in Oklahoma and being one of the first, like you said, Spanish-speaking meteorologists, I guess, in the state, I mean, in terms of that position in itself, have you had people coming up to you saying, we appreciate you, we love you being here, we value your forecasting, or what has that experience been like?
It definitely has, and it's a good feeling inside. Like, okay, I'm doing my job, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and there's that feedback. Because before, and this is somewhat common within the Latin community, you'll just have a weathercaster per se. saying the temperatures, the highs, the lows, and the 7 days. They really have no knowledge of the actual science of what's going on. And I guess for the community to be able to see that change and to actually know, okay, this is what we can expect within the coming days and why that's happening, I think has been a huge advantage. And the people have definitely shown their appreciation for it, especially, the fact that it was back in February when we had all that icy, wintry mix stuff. I was still letting people know on Facebook, even though we don't broadcast on Saturday and Sundays, hey, this is what's happening. And just the response from my fans was really incredible.
Very cool.
I definitely think this is a phenomenal show, and when I heard Danielle mention that she wanted to bring you on as a guest, I was like, what a phenomenal opportunity, because Michael, I know there's certainly a very big Spanish-speaking community here in Oklahoma City. I don't have the exact numbers, and I'm sure you do, but I would guess it's probably in the range of 12 to 15%. Does that sound about right?
Yep, that does sound about right.
So after the May tornadoes last year and the flooding that we had on May 31st, I remember reaching out to the Spanish-speaking community and them saying, hey, we were not receiving these messages. And that's one thing that I always try to stress, especially out here in Oklahoma, is that weather does not only affect the English-speaking community, it affects all of us. It's one of the things that basically unites us all together, is that we all experience the same kind of weather. So after we had all that turbulent weather last year, I bought my first copy of Rosetta Stone. I said, I'm going to learn Spanish. I'm going to try my hardest to see if I can at least try to do something that no other TV station at the time was doing out here. And then I was very excited when I saw that you all were coming into the market, because the ability for you to reach that audience is going to be far greater than me. I know what I call survival Spanish, in which I can kind of say, a few things here and a few things there. However, you're fluent in it. I have watched many of your broadcasts, and so you are able to break that language barrier. What is it like as far as being a meteorologist out here, starting up a TV station in a severe weather market? And having that ability to speak a foreign language, do you find it any different than when you're in San Antonio, or do you find that, hey, you know what, there's Spanish-speaking people in both communities, and the same thing that I'm doing here is probably the same thing they're doing in San Antonio?
One thing that I have come to realize is that in San Antonio, I had everything, and so coming here to Oklahoma, it was starting from the bottom up, literally. Investing in software, trying to get management to see the need for what it is and how we need to go about changing things and where we need to proceed. So honestly, in the 9 months that I've been here, I've seen so much that I've been able to change because of the fact that it's starting a weather department from ground zero.
That's tough, and that's tough. I mean,
yeah.
We all come in here. KOCO has been on the air now for 60 years, so our weather department has basically matured, and we have the things that we need, the technology. And I can only imagine, it's not cheap to get weather equipment.
No.
Whether it is software, whether it is radar, it is very expensive. And so, I know that the management side to it will say, all right, why do you need this? You need to tell us why you need this. So this being a quiet, severe weather season, have you found it to be a little bit more challenging, or do you think that we're going to need a big weather event to tell everyone out there, like, hey, this is why we need a radar, or this is why we need this software or that software? Do you think you need a big event to make that happen?
I think, honestly, the two little events that we just had this past week, and I was able to kind of compare some data, I think I have the resources that I need to say, here, look, this is why we need this. This is what our system is showing now. This is how we need to advance.
Mike, do you have anybody else on your team, or is it just you, or what's going on?
Let's see. There's me, myself, and I.
I figured that's what it was, but I didn't know if you guys had any, plans to hire another meteorologist, or if you are it. So.
I think for the time being, I'm it. I do have a weather. The person who's doing the weather before me, she's kind of my backup if I am to get sick or whatever. I can also from home log into our system remotely, and from there be able to create graphics if I need to, and just tell her, hey, this is what's going on. Just kind of relay that information.
Yeah.
What's it been like? What's it been like, Michael or Mike? I'll call you Mike. What's it been like to break into the market as a Spanish-speaking meteorologist? I mean, how has the welcome been for you? Has it been good? Has it been bad?
I think it's been good. For the most part, it's been good. I've received a lot of positive comments just from people, the general public. One thing that I'm not quite used to yet is the stares when I'm walking around places. Like, I know that person, but where, you know? But besides that, I mean, people have welcomed me with open arms. I've received a very positive response from not only management, but also the community in general.
Yeah. I was going to ask, whenever, we go through an event, a weather event, even sometimes we scratch our heads and say, why did this happen, or I wish we could have done this better. I mean, has there been an event since you've been here where maybe you wish that you could have changed the way you said something on air to the people, or you would do something differently next time? Is there any event that, you can learn from that you've been through so far?
I think as far as that goes, I think with like the severe weather events that we've had, the few that we've had, thank God, it's just the lack of resources and the fact of informing people, because when you don't have all the technology there's only certain things you can tell people without giving them false hope or inaccurate information.
Right.
What do you think last May 31st, Mike, with the flooding fatalities? I know a lot of times we focus so much on the fact that we had this El Reno tornado and it was huge, and somehow the flooding, the flood warnings kind of got pushed aside. Do you think had there been, had you been in town and that your message was getting heard across the masses, that there would not have been as many fatalities? Because I believe there were a few Spanish-speaking, basically Spanish was their only language, that were killed in last year's floods, right?
The people that were, the family rather, that was killed within the floods last year, they actually spoke a different dialect from Guatemala, and so it wasn't actually Spanish. Granted, I mean, the people, what happened is they were turning into a news station, I don't know which one, and I'm not going to say which because I don't know, and they misunderstood the meteorologist relaying the information, and they got confused with the day, and they didn't understand the message is the main point, and so they went into the ditch, and unfortunately that's how they ended up passing away, is because of the floodwaters. And I think the fact that now that I am here providing that information to them in Spanish, I think it does help with the general public in getting that information across to them in that language.
Hey Mike, was this the group that went into the storm drain?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think we're all fairly familiar with that event. I didn't realize that they were Spanish speaking, and so they tried to interpret the message and just didn't understand it.
Right, and their native language was a different dialect, so they didn't actually understand Spanish per se, but it was a different dialect of a language that they speak in Guatemala.
We talk a lot about dialects in the last couple of minutes. Kind of break down a little bit for those of us who aren't familiar with Spanish and all the dialects. What exactly is a dialect, and how does it change the language?
Sure, so you have general Spanish, which is used everywhere. You also have in Spain, they use the vosotros form. So when you're translating, it's easy. In English, we just say you all, your, in Spanish it becomes nosotros, and then in Spain they also use the form vosotros. But then there are different languages within that. So yes, you have a general population that speaks Spanish, but then there are certain, these people being that they were from Guatemala, they spoke a different language completely that was not Spanish whatsoever. It's kind of like within tribes, I guess you could relate it up to here. You have different Indian tribes that use different languages per se, if that makes sense.
It kind of reminds me of when I went to Spain, and in Madrid it was completely different than Barcelona, because Barcelona spoke Catalan, and it was like a blend of Spanish and French. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of times when, Danielle, you're a world traveler. I love to travel, and sometimes all you want is just simple weather information, and sometimes it's hard to find. I know, I go down to Mexico, and they don't have the type of national weather service like we have here. So the ability to get that weather information is certainly different. Or even if you go over to Europe, and I know in Switzerland, they have a color-coded warning system. So basically, red is bad, yellow is, warning or whatever. So getting that ability to get weather information, or having the ability to get weather information, something we take for granted every single day here in the United States. You go to a different country, it's very different. Mike, kind of tell us a little bit about how weather in the United States and then how weather in Mexico on television is handled, because it seems to me that whenever I go to Mexico and I'm watching the news, it seems to be a lot more about look and appearance with their weather.
Yeah.
And I don't seem to get as much information, but here I seem to get a lot more information. Kind of break down the two about how the two countries vary are different in their weather forecasting.
Sure. So that's one thing that I've actually come to realize as well. Within Mexico, you have a lot of weather presenters. These are not people like us who actually graduated in meteorology, know the background of the science. What they're doing is they're getting the information from the National Weather Service in Mexico, and then in turn translating that and trying their best to kind of come up with the pictures, the graphics, and explain that information. Now, typically in Mexico, if you were to go to a Spanish station and flip on the weather, you'll normally see a very, it's all about looks there.
Yes.
To
very much.
The girls are wearing short dresses and their tops are down here.
Thank you for being the one to mention that.
Sorry, no problem.
So I mean that's kind of to whereas here we take weather more serious. Now, granted, in Mexico you do have storms, hurricanes, and things like that you do talk about. But that's one thing that I have come to realize is that in Mexico they just don't do that. They have more weather presenters that just kind of give a general forecast of here's what to expect, and they'll put music in the background and try to make it entertaining, and it's different. It's different.
So they're not 4-year degreed meteorologists, correct?
No.
Now, what would happen? Let's say that you have a 4-year degree in meteorology and you want to get a job in Mexican television. Do they even look at that at all, or is that not even a need to have?
Excuse me. It depends, because one thing I will say is that
drink that water, man. I know the allergies are bad.
We don't want you to choke on us here.
Exactly. Let's say there is to be a severe weather event or something, right? They do have degreed meteorologists out of Miami that are actually headquartered. They are the meteorologist for Univision. They are the meteorologist for Telemundo. They are the meteorologist for whatever it is, whatever network it is. They do have an actual meteorologist that's in Florida that'll then relay that message nationally to everyone. So if there was any type of severe weather, they do have someone out there that can translate that information.
Now, Mike, when you were, because you said you were fascinated with weather as you were a kid, and you knew you wanted to get into this field of broadcast meteorology, did you per se always know that you wanted to do it in Spanish, or is it something? Did you look at it like I want to definitely do this in English, and then Spanish just the job opening just kind of came up, or like how does that work?
Exactly. So I didn't minor in Spanish at all in college. It was strictly English. I was thinking, okay, I'm working at NBC. I'll move to another English station. It'll be perfect. And then all of a sudden, my professor gave me this number and said they're looking for a meteorologist in Spanish. And I thought, I could do that. Sure, why not? Might as well try it. And so that's how the whole thing came up to be. I was applying to places online and stuff, and then all of a sudden, all I did was make that one phone call and changed everything.
Yeah.
It's
very
amazing.
cool. Now, would you ever go back to English? I mean, would you, if another job down the line came open, would you consider that, or have you just kind of grown in this position and probably going to stay with the Spanish?
I'm definitely open to it. I'm open to both. I think the fact that being able to speak Spanish fluently opens more doors, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I've always been impressed with watching, just how you can deliver a message, and I'm always, interested, okay, A's and B's. We have highs and lows on a weather map. You have A's and B's. For people who aren't really familiar with what that means, where does the A and the B come from?
Sure. So high is alta, which it's literally translated. So that's the big A, the blue A. And then a low on the map you'll see as a yellow L. And so low in Spanish is baja. So then that's the B on the map. So you get alta presión and baja presión. So that's where the A and the B come from.
How big is the market? You know, I know that for KOCO, you know, we have a we branch all the way out, you know, well past Woodward. People even in the Panhandle can watch us. Are you all broadcasting statewide, or is it just basically in Oklahoma City and Tulsa?
It's statewide. We broadcast statewide from Guyman to Tulsa all the way south.
I can imagine that's going to lead to some pretty long nights, because I know there are some nights when I'm working and I say, oh, those storms are west of Guyman. I don't have to worry about them. You know, that's the Amarillo DMA there, or you know, or part of Wichita as it goes into southwest Kansas. So you guys actually go all the way out into the Panhandle, huh?
Yeah, we're the only Spanish-speaking station that broadcasts statewide. If there is severe weather coverage, we'll then actually break in on both networks, Univision and Telemundo, and that'll broadcast statewide.
Now, Mike, I have a couple questions. Do you go wall to wall? Because you said it's just you. Who would help you out with that? And how long are you going to stay on? I mean, we know sometimes when we're in coverage for a few hours, like we can be in Oklahoma, and you know, KOCO, you would almost have to go on longer if you were to cover it wall to wall, because once it goes into the Tulsa market, we're off air. We get a break. We are able to have a little bit of a nap before the next round. So how are you going to do this? I mean, you're going to be on 15 hours if you're covering everything.
Lots of coffee, I guess.
Okay. So you do stay on then.
Well, we haven't had the event where we have to stay on for a continuous, long periods of time, but I am ready for that. When I produced at WOI and worked with these other meteorologists, there would be times where I would go in at 8 o'clock at night and I wouldn't get out until 6 in the morning and had class at 9. You know, so it's something that I'm used to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, energy shots. If anyone knows me, you know, you know my drawer. You know, let me tell you, Mike. You know, 5-hour energy that will that can keep you up for a while. So, how is the overall station? You know, I mean, are you all looking at expanding, you know, into the weekend and doing a newscast?
I'm not really sure on that yet. There have been kind of talks about it, but I'm not really sure where we're headed in what direction.
And when you say, you know, Telemundo, my first TV station and Danielle's station as well down in Abilene, we had a Telemundo station. We're the ABC affiliate. We had a Telemundo reporter, but that's all we had was just a Telemundo reporter, and then that kind of got pushed to the side there. How many markets in the United States actually have, that you know of, a Spanish-speaking newscast?
There's a lot of them. Now, there are, what they'll do is for example, a meteorologist that I know of in Colorado, he will do a weather segment, and then he will cover Colorado as well as New Mexico as well as Kansas.
Who are you talking about? Who is this in Colorado?
Oh, I'm horrible with names. I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now.
I was when I went to I went to a weather conference, Mike, and Steamboat, and met Irene Saenz, who is down in Houston.
Yes.
And you know, I was amazed at her reporting, and especially just because of the fact that, you know, down in Houston, obviously, you know, South Texas, you know, big Spanish-speaking community, and there was another guy from Denver as well, who might be the same guy that we're talking about. I forgot his name. But both of them, I mean, you know, I have a hard enough time speaking English, and so to be able to see someone speak English very well and then speak Spanish very well on TV, I mean, I almost become a little jealous of these people that can speak multiple languages and do it so well. You know, do you think that Telemundo stations and Spanish-speaking news stations are going to expand across America next decade as we become a little bit more diverse?
You know, I'm not really sure. But going back to the broadcasting, as far as I actually worked very closely with Irene, and I actually started watching her videos while I was studying in college, so I had no idea that I would then be working for a Telemundo station. But she as well, when she started, did the whole simulcasting thing where, you know, to reduce the cost and budgets, they would just have one meteorologist and they would do the weather for Dallas, for Houston, for Miami, and they would just kind of send it out that way. I think total on a national level, there are probably about 20 to 30 Spanish-speaking meteorologists nationwide.
Wow.
Do you do the weather in metric system or English system?
No, we do everything in Fahrenheit.
Oh, okay.
You know, I've wondered that actually a couple times because I know, you know, I mean,
In Spain, it's Celsius.
it's all Celsius.
Yeah, I mean most of the world. I mean, it's just standard. America's not going to change.
Yeah. I mean, America is the only country, I think, that doesn't use Celsius and stuff like that. So we're kind of...
Yeah.
We're the only ones that are special in doing it in Fahrenheit.
Yeah, we're unique again.
Yeah, unique. There you go.
It's always hard, though, when you do travel to Europe or other places, because it's like, okay, now I have to get back on my Celsius here.
So we get the formula again, yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, Mike, I was going to ask, so... you know, kind of going back to what Damon said and trying to learn the language, you know, I studied it for 6 years and I'm still not fluent, you know, and I do think it's amazing that you guys can speak really good English and really good Spanish, because even having studied it for that long and traveled to so many Spanish-speaking countries, I still have to think before I talk, you know, it doesn't just come out naturally. So, like, what do you, you know, when you look at us as a meteorologist, a TV station, SEO in the market, what do you think that we could improve upon, I guess? You know, I know there's you now, which is great, but is there anything that you would, like, you know, give us as advice, you know, to the Spanish-speaking community? Because, you know, like, we're trying, but is there anything more that you think we could do?
I think one of the things that would be great for all networks to do, that I think would be a big advantage, is the weather crawls that you'll have going on the bottom of your screens. Gotcha. A lot of the companies now, WSI, Barron, Weather Central, they all have them where they're now dual language. And you can have it crawl once in English and then have the same thing in Spanish. And the meteorologist or the person there actually doesn't have to know Spanish, because there are automatic fields that will automatically go about translating that message.
Does Telemundo consider KOCO as a competitor? And are we a competitor to you, or does Telemundo have its own niche?
No, I wouldn't consider y'all competition. I think we would consider ourselves our own niche, just because of the fact that y'all's primary language is English.
Mm-hmm. Because you have a nice office there. I mean, if we had a weather office as nice as you are, but where are you?
No, I'm in Norman. No, this is not my weather. That would be amazing.
Oh, you're the weather service then.
I actually may see you later today, because I have a shoot down there.
Okay.
Are you doing the job shadow with Rick?
Yeah.
We've all done that, and it's been a lot of fun. It's actually been a lot of fun. You know, one thing that we don't just, after every severe weather event, just, you know, put up our jacket on the, you know, on the hanger and just call it a day. We're always analyzing what worked with that weather event, or what could we do to improve it. I know after last year's May tornadoes, we went down to the National Weather Service. The media did. We kind of talked to them about, you know, this is what went well, this is what did not work well. So we have a very good relationship with the National Weather Service, and I remember one of the things that you know, they brought up was the language barrier that was across Oklahoma. How hard has it been? Because I think many Oklahomans, you know, whether you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma City, no matter where you are, they're not used to there being a Spanish-speaking meteorologist in this state. Now that you are here, have you found it difficult to try to get the name out to, hey, we're here, you know, like, watch us?
One of the things that I think we did that helped a lot was we actually created brochures, tornado guides, with a checklist of, hey, what people should purchase, how they can go about preparing, what the difference is between a watch and a warning. and just basic information so that way they would know. And then we went and did that to various businesses everywhere across Oklahoma, and people responded very well. I mean, there was one time when I went into Walgreens to pick up medicine, and like I saw my brochure, I was like, "Hey, how cool!" You know.
What do you find, Mike, is maybe your audience's hardest thing to understand? I know that in weather in general, you know, trying to present the difference between a watch or a warning, or a significant weather advisory, and or whatever else other advisory there is out there. Is there any sort of thing where people come to you and they say, "I don't quite understand this"?
I think at this point it's basically the different systems. When I'm talking about high pressure, low pressure, and so I try to go in depth in explaining what that is. I just try to keep the weather very, very simplistic, so the average Joe can understand it. At the same time, I think one of the advantages of doing the weather in English, Spanish rather, is in English the word watch and warning both start with W, so people get really confused. But in Spanish, watch is vigilancia and warning is alerta, so you can see the difference in that. Basically, warning is translated to the English definition of alert, and so that kind of has more of a impact, if you will.
Very cool.
Now, in my studies of Spanish, I feel like there's a lot of different ways of saying something, and it all kind of means the same. So you said alerta is warning.
Yes.
What is advertencia? Is that kind of the same thing as well?
Advertencia is the same thing. It's different because you have vigilancia, advertencia. There's so many different terminologies that you can actually use.
Okay.
So yeah.
So would it be wrong if I said advertencia de tornado? Would that be wrong? Like, don't say that?
It wouldn't be wrong, but if you want to be consistent, it would be better just to say alerta de tornado.
Okay. Gotta remember these things, you never know.
David, I think it's like the whole conversation we had the other day with El Tiempo and Clima.
Yeah, I know. So what is it? Is it El Tiempo or Clima?
It's El Tiempo. The thing is that people say Clima because coming from Mexico, that's all they hear is Clima. Clima is climate, climatology. It's climatology. It's not weather. That's one thing that I've been trying to ingrain here, that I feel because they haven't had a Spanish-speaking meteorologist, it's different. Being from San Antonio, you watch Univision, you watch Telemundo, you're going to see it come up and it say El Tiempo, and big letters with the open. Whereas here, and being that the people come from Mexico, there is that confusion, but El Tiempo is actually weather happening now, where Clima is more like a study of climatology.
I'll have to remember that. Hey, while I have you on here, Mike, do you remember Jackie Rutledge?
I do.
Okay.
Oh, wow, Jackie.
Jackie Rutledge. She was at K-Texas. She hired myself. She hired Danielle, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so.
She was the general manager at WOAI by the time I was working there. So.
Yeah.
Is she still there? Where is she?
I don't know where she is.
She's not there anymore, obviously.
No, no, she's not there anymore, but she's very sweet.
Well, anything else that you kind of want to plug?
Yeah, I was going to ask that, too.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, sure, Jonathan.
Mike, I got a question for you. What's the population or percentage of your viewership? Like, do you have an idea what your viewership is? And of that, what's the percentage that's only Spanish speaking?
I don't have those numbers for you, but I can say that it's pretty large due to the fact that we do broadcast statewide.
All right.
I'd probably say, Jonathan, it's probably at least in Oklahoma City, 10 to 12%. That would probably, that's a good number.
So, Mike, you asked me for a link to send to your audience. So, is there anything that you want to tell them in Spanish, or if they're watching, or while you are on the show? Anything you want to plug, like Dan said?
Sure. The website is unidosok.com, and that is our weather website, all in Spanish, and you actually have it in an interactive radar, and then I also update all of my forecasts as well for Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
You're having a hard time hearing everything. There's a feedback on your speakers, Damon. It's echoing a little bit. Sorry about that.
You're fine.
All I heard was a bunch of echoing.
Yeah, I hear it a little bit too. Can Damon hear it?
Mm-mm.
Damon, is it you? Who is it?
I don't hear anything. We'll try it again.
Try again.
Okay, test. No, I can still hear myself. That's weird. Okay, do I just keep talking? I mean...
Yeah, you might as well. Might as well.
Hey, Dave, turn your speakers down or mute your mic for a second. I think it's coming through you because you pop up every time. Try it now.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, we're good. So the website is called unidosok.com, and when you go there, you can click on the Acción Oklahoma tab and then scroll down to where you see El Tiempo. When you click on that, you'll have all the weather information in Spanish, as well as a 7-day forecast for Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and then an interactive radar as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else anybody wants to add?
Yeah, Damon says, yeah, there's no problem. Everything's good.
It's not me.
Of course it's not. Damon, you'll have to go back and watch what we're talking about.
I don't hear anything. I mean, everything sounds fine on my end.
Everything on my end is like Mike's underwater.
Yeah.
I'm just
drowning
happy.
here.
I'm just happy they stopped all the banging in my house over here. I guess they got all the shells ripped out.
That's funny. Well, Mike, thanks for coming on. We were excited to have you, and I think learned a lot of stuff from you today too.
Well, thank you again. I really appreciate y'all having me on. It was a great honor.
All right. Well, enjoy your day down in Norman, and Mike will be in touch.
All right. Take care, guys.
See ya.